Welcome back to Honest Gaming Reviews. Let's talk about Battlefield 4. So, Battlefield 4 was quite a letdown from Battlefield 3. I did not like the mechanics of the game at all. It was very, very, very frustrating to deal with, really irritating to deal with your teammates, your squad, really. Having to kind of command them to shoot stuff was really frustrating, and at least in my playthrough of the game, the commands did not work about 80 to 90% of the time. Unlike even the previous Battlefield game, when you were having your teammates by your side, they really didn't end up shooting anyone. Like, they just were not able to remove anyone. And it was frustrating because you ended up having to go through and take everyone down on your own. Even if you were commanding them, all they would do is lay down suppressing fire, and that was about it. And with the game focusing so heavily on that mechanic in several areas of the gameplay, where you basically had to have your teammates be able to remove enemy combatants, it's just really frustrating to have to deal with a mechanic that doesn't work almost 90% of the time. And again, like I said, it was a huge mechanic for this game. You needed it in almost every single mission, and it just wasn't there. It didn't work at all. And if it was just that, I'd say, this game was okay. The graphics were amazing. Loved the story. Kind of left you off on a good cliffhanger ish. And, hey, we can move on from there. But that's not the case at all. That's not it. It's not. So let's go through the rest of the problems then. In my playthrough of this game, now again, I know this is a bit of an older game, but I did play it just recently, obviously. Um, there's a bunch of glitches. There were several glitches where, again, not having to do with Wi-Fi or anything like that, but my teammates were kind of trapped back behind me, like they were almost just like stuck in spawn and they couldn't get away from it. And I would get like super far ahead of them and complete the generalized location for the mission checkpoint, and then I'd be trying to advance through the next checkpoint, but the game wouldn't render in the next checkpoint because I had to have my teammates with me. Or in one specific scene, I had to jump down into a building in which I couldn't get back out of, but I didn't realize that my teammates were stuck back at spawn. So when I jumped down in the pit in the building, my teammates were not able to come to where I was, and so I ended up having to exit the game and restart it because it wasn't working. In another one, I um, glitched through a building when I got hit by a grenade that was tossed at me, and I ended up falling through the bottom of the map. But there was no way. I tried restarting the mission, but it had hit a checkpoint when I got pushed by it, and I ended up having to restart the game. Again, exit, restart from a previous checkpoint because it glitched out like that. There were other instances where I was inside of a tank and I glitched through a whole hilltop and I ended up being stuck inside of the hilltop. And I tried restarting checkpoint, but it wouldn't restart me in the proper place, and it had me still inside the tank, but now I was stuck inside of the map itself instead of over by the hilltop. And so stuff like that, really frustrating. Multiple glitches. I had to restart the game well over a dozen times in my 8 hours, 6 hours, something like that of gameplay. So extreme problem, really frustrating to deal with. It wasn't like it was horrendously bad, like some games out there where they crash like every, like 45 minutes or so and you got to restart the game continuously in order to be able to play. But still, for that big budget of a game ticket, there should be no reason for game glitches like that to happen, in my opinion, especially when it's just campaign like I was playing. Also, the same thing goes true for the commanding tactics for your squad. It should not have been that bad. There's no reason for it. Now, this could have just been my gameplay, but that's all I've played, or that's all I'm going off of, so I kind of have to stay true to what happened to me. And since that's how it happened, that's how I got to rate it. There were several other issues, like trying to shoot at enemies and hits were not being registered. Even though you could see bullets phasing through people and things, it just wasn't registering. Hits were not being registered. I wasn't getting hit markers. Now, it's all a video game. It's all fake. I know. None of it's really true. But to have those kind of issues, again, in such a big ticket game is very, very disappointing. In general, I loved the story. I loved the idea behind it, an EMP going off inside of China controlled territory, the US soldiers already being there trying to rescue a high level VIP and extract him out, ending up trying to rescue all these Chinese nationals who were stranded because of this, the US ships being attacked, all this stuff. It was really fun. The story was fun. But when I'm having all of these glitches, it just got super irritating to deal with. The biggest one, in my opinion, that I had to deal with was I hit a checkpoint, and right on the other side of that checkpoint, like within half a second, my teammates got stuck below the deck in a ship. Not like an area of the map that I could get to, but like genuinely stuck underneath the map floor. And they couldn't come out. And because it had happened within a half second of me hitting the checkpoint, when I restarted the checkpoint, I had the same issue every single time, and I tried about 4 or 5 times before I exited the game, restarted it. I came back again, still had those same issues, and I ended up having to restart the whole mission instead of just the checkpoint. And again, big ticket game, big ticket company shouldn't have these kinds of problems. That just feels like an unfinished game. Which, for it being an old game too, like Battlefield 4, I mean, this is not a new game and it has those issues. I don't know if it's just lack of support or something like that, but there's no reason for it to have those kind of major issues. So that's really disappointing to see. It had some of the same issues from Battlefield 3 with military tactics being really lax, not really supported. It's not like your squad was doing things the way a military team would do. Also missing again the military badges, the rank and division patches on their shoulders. Those were not there. Several other things like that, which again, super disappointing to see. Most of them didn't even have, like, you were playing as the Marines for a while and you didn't have a Marine patch. The U.S. Air Force didn't have anything signifying they were the Air Force. You were on the Navy's boats and there's nothing on them signifying that they were from the Navy except for like one scene where you were getting up out of your cot inside the beds and there was a guy, I don't remember if it was a Marine or a Navy hat, but he had a hat on that signified. And he was the only person in the entire game who had something on him telling you what part of the military he was. And that was just really disappointing, again, because in a military game, you should not have these kinds of issues. It's so simple. I know that developers try and cut corners where they can, especially for big ticket gaming companies, so that they make more money, because that's what big ticket gaming companies are all about. Cutting the corners, saving the expenses, and still pushing out a mostly decent game so that people will buy it and play it as rapidly as possible so they can get the next newest one out. That's been the whole downfall of Call of Duty and Halo. And I feel like, from my experience, I've played some of the other Battlefield games. I'm going to do reviews on some of the newer ones shortly. I'll be playing through them again because it's been a few years since I played them. But I feel like that's the same issue that Battlefield's having, is they just start pushing out their games as quickly as possible, and every game I've played so far has had more and more issues. So I just don't feel like it was worth playing through. If you could take out all the glitches, all the crashes, all of the glitched characters, and it was just the mechanics, and it was just the soldier and military issues that are common in military games, I would have loved the game. I wouldn't have been happy about it. It's not like I would have given it a 10 out of 10, but it probably would have been like a 7 out of 10. But with all these game crashes and all the other issues, this game was just severely lacking. And I'd probably, like, it doesn't seem fair to rank it against like Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, but that's one of the other games that I gave a poor rating on as well. And I'd probably give this one probably about a 4.5 out of 10, just like I gave Marvel's a 4, because both of them had good graphics, both of them had an interesting story. It's just that everything else about the game sucked on both of these games.